I'm Gold Derby News and Features editor Ray Richmond, and I'm welcoming Weronika Tofilska, who directed the first 4 episodes of the Netflix limited series Baby Reindeer, to our Gold Derby Meet the Emmy nominees TV directors panel. Veronica, I think a lot of people may be hearing your name for the first time, even though you've been writing and directing for a while, particularly in Europe. What do you think sold Baby Reindeer creator, writer, and star Richard Gadd on you as one of the 2 directors for the project?
Oh, wow. Hi, first of all. That is a tough question for me to answer, but I mean, I definitely felt extremely passionate about the project from the moment I read the script. So I was going in with just a lot of love for it and a lot of conviction in terms of how I saw it. And I was just hoping that that really matches up with what Richard and the producers were seeing as well. Because obviously they were developing this project for years before I even entered the room. And so I think there was a common ground already in terms of what I thought the show should look like and should feel like. And I think that's really important. It was very much an interview process. And during that interview, I basically sold what my idea was, which was that we're basically inside Donnie's head for the whole duration of the show, and we're making it extremely subjective, and the world kind of reflects everything that this character feels. And that, I think that was my pitch, and I got the job. So I hope that was it.
I think a lot of people go into this hearing, well, it's about a stalker in a guy, but you don't realize until you really start watching it, especially in the 4th episode where you're nominated for, that it really is about how damaged this guy is. And I give him so much credit for copping to that, to all of the issues he had, and really sort of almost inviting all of this to happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think from the moment I started reading the script, I had this very strong feeling that it's not a show about a stalker. I mean, first of all, it's a show about Donnie. So who's getting stalked. And the more I read, especially when I read episode 4, the more I realized that it's really a character study, and it's really kind of like look inwards, a sort of gradual kind of peeling of different layers of this character, Donnie's character, and then we see all the characters through his eyes, and how he saw them. That's why it was so important to keep it very subjective, and so we see how people are affecting him and the decisions he's making based on how he sees those people. So it is very much like internal journey.
What a gift for a director to have talent like Richard and Jessica Gunning and Nava Mal and Tom Goodman Hill to direct. I mean, what an embarrassment of riches.
I know. I know. I think, again, coming back to the script, the characters were so beautifully written and defined and complex that I think a lot of actors wanted the roles. So we were in this extremely lucky position that we were auditioning, and we were reading with a lot of actors, and people were willing to come back multiple times for the roles, and we were doing chemistry reads with Richard. And so obviously, like almost everyone was reading for the role. I mean, everyone really, apart from Richard.
Right.
Who was already cast. Yeah. So and it was amazing, that people were willing to do it, people who are very established in the UK TV and film industry. And in case of Jess Gunning, that was such an important part of the casting, and we just felt so lucky that we got to find her. Yeah.
How would you describe your working relationship with Richard on the set? Were there any bumps along the way? I mean, knowing it's about his real life experience, did he ever ask you to alter anything to better reflect the truth, or were there any difficulties?
No, I mean, there's always, I mean, everyone who works on set, there's like every day is like 100,000 difficulties, obviously. But no, it was a very good collaboration, I think. And we really did a lot of conversations beforehand, because we were very aware that we don't want to get into any conversations, complex conversations like that on set. So it was important that that I share with him as much as I can what we're planning to do, our shot list, and kind of go through things and talk about our plan and then basically, so he knew what's happening. So he was never kind of feeling, surprised by what we're doing. But then on set, it was actually quite traditional sort of actor-director relationship in that way. And he also was acting, so he couldn't, he had to be in it, and it was very fast, so we just kept going. Yeah.
Let's talk specifically, Veronica, about the episode you received your Emmy nomination for, the fourth one, which was so hero. I wasn't surprised that's what you got the nomination for, because it's so harrowing and powerful. And it shifted that whole narrative, as we talked about, from Donnie being a victim of stalker Martha to the drugging and sexual abuse he endured at the hands of the manipulative predator Darren. It really was almost like doing a different movie than the rest of the series.
Yes, I think when I read the script, I felt that it's a sort of like a standalone episode. It's like you show the whole journey of a character, from like innocence to kind of, losing that innocence really, and it's kind of like a catharsis in the end of that episode. So it felt like a little feature, it's a sort of 45-minute, so a longer episode than the other episodes, and it was incredible as well because the tone shifts so much, and that was very exciting for me as a director, and then for the DP as well, Christoph Treuner, like how to kind of take the audience on that journey. So you start with like quite fun scenes, the scenes when he's kind of gigging and making a fool out of himself in the pub. And then like slowly you sort of establish this relationship with Darian, and he kind of gets sucked in, and the episode gets progressively darker and more disturbing. But again, we were sort of hoping that by really staying subjective to what he sees and how he's experiencing things, we will kind of get there with him. And although the tone shifts so much from comedy to drama to, borderline horror, really, that because we're still with him emotionally all the time, all the way, that's what's going to kind of glue it all together.
I would imagine there were a lot of particular challenges, though, in that episode specifically, depicting such a bleak and traumatic series of moments. And as you say, it's a standalone episode, but far less comedy, as I recall, in that episode than in the rest. I mean, this is just, I know that darkness and comedy go together these days, but oh my God, it was just breathtakingly bleak.
Yes, I mean, there's moments of lightness. I think that's the brilliance of Richard's writing, that even in the kind of most disturbing moments, when Darren starts doing this dance, there is this sort of a tragic comic element to it all, and we try to capture that. But yeah, I mean, we definitely knew from the beginning this is like the emotional core of the whole show, and by also establishing moments of darkness in episodes 1, 2, 3, we kind of gradually taking the audience there. But then you did need the counterpoints. That's why when we had these comedy scenes in Edinburgh, we really leaned into the fun of it as well, and we kind of tried to make it like extremely exciting for him with kind of like fast camera moves and a lot of music, so we really felt like the beginning of the episode has to have that feeling of fun and excitement because we knew what's coming, and we had to understand why Donnie also like falls for it, because
that was done pretty believably. We could see that. I mean, it was all about his career, and oh my God, it's my big break.
Yeah, exactly. That was really important for sure.
We're going to wrap things there. All 7 episodes of Baby Reindeer stream on Netflix. Weronika Tofilska,
thank you.
Best of
Thank
luck.
You so much.
Best of luck at forthcoming Emmys and in September. And thanks for joining us at Gold Derby.
Thank you very much.
I'm Gold Derby News and Features Editor Ray Richmond, and I'm welcoming Abbott Elementary Director Randall Einhorn to our Gold Derby Meet the Emmy Nominees TV Directors panel. Randall, I didn't realize how impressive your resume was until I looked at you up on IMDb. Nurse Jackie, The Office, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, now 21 episodes of Abbott as its chief director. Does this gig ever get old?
No, it really doesn't. I feel very fortunate with what I get to do at work. I mean, I get to go to work and play with really brilliant people and have a giggle while doing it. I mean, that's often the hardest thing about our job is not laughing when you're not supposed to be.
You got a lot of experience with the mockumentary style as a director and cinematographer on The Office. How is working on Abbott different, or maybe it's not?
I mean, the difference between, I think, doing The Office and Abbott is, what we wanted the show to look like. Because I think we were talking about two different things. We're talking about the downturn of business and a struggling paper company, as opposed to, and the Abbott's obviously about a struggling underfunded inner city school. And really, what we wanted it to look different, because these people are heroes. I mean, people drop off their kids and during the day and leave them with these teachers, and they hope they're doing a good job, and they assume they are. But it's a really unrewarded job, and I think the way that we wanted to portray them is that they're doing something noble, doing something that most of us just don't have the energy to do.
Now, I think we talked about this briefly before we started. A lot of people would think that this mockumentary style would be easier than a conventional, say, multi-camera sitcom. And that literally the opposite is true. Tell me why.
Absolutely the opposite. It is so much easier to just frame a normal show because you could put a camera wherever you want. You could put it at the most optimal place. Whereas shooting a mockumentary, I can't always put it in the most optimal place, but I do think that in that difficulty, there lies some opportunity for some really cool stuff that you find. And on The Office, we always said, what makes it harder actually makes it better. But for instance, it just seems to be, it is much more choreographed where the cameras move and how the characters move. And there's a scene in the episode The Party where we're moving through a party with 35 people, and we're a camera crew and a focus puller, and we're a big machine, and it takes a lot of choreography and a lot of thought to be able to do that and it come out looking good. So it's just harder to find those beautiful frames, but I think once you do, it's so much more rewarding. Like I can on a conventional show, you're not actually quite often motivating the viewer to look around a corner or to duck under a blind so they could see the people kissing, which is a really fun thing to play with. I'm always trying to activate the viewer as opposed to just entertain them. I want them to be hungry to see more. That's why when Gregory and Janine are, if anything secretive is happening, we just play them on a really long lens and we step way back. And I think it kind of paints the scene with this veneer of authenticity that we're privy to something we shouldn't necessarily be privy to. And that's a really fun thing to play with.
See, it's so interesting, Randall, because I would have thought that this style, documentary style, is more free form, and you could really just, it didn't have the choreography. You didn't have to have things that, you could just kind of, estimate where things go. And it's literally the exacting nature of that, I'm sure, is the precise opposite.
It is the precise opposite. We can't put a camera where I would have seen a camera. We will never shoot something if we couldn't have shot it that way. And that started back on The Office. I just that's the rules. If we couldn't have done this, then we won't do it. So you need to find out another way of doing it, which is challenging but fun.
How would you describe your working relationship with Quinta Brunson on the set?
Working with Quinta on set it's a dream. I mean, I read the script and I liked the script very much, but then I met Quinta. I'm like, oh gosh, I've got to do this. I want to do this with her. It's so collaborative. I mean, nothing's precious, nothing's sacred. My goal every single day, I have two goals every day. I want Quinta to say, Randall, that's so stupid. Let's do that. And I want Shirley Ralph to call me baby.
And does that happen most days?
It really does. I'm usually able to pitch something stupid enough that Quinta will say, Randall, that is so stupid. Let's do that. It's pretty good.
So This might answer this next question already, what you just said. I'm wondering if it gets easier or more comfortable to work with the cast and crew on a show the longer you're on it, or if you just start getting on each other's nerves more.
I think it's both. But no, it's definitely easier to work with a crew that, I mean, there's no reason other than, network television we have a new director each week just because you don't have the episodes ready. But I think it's easiest to just direct them all myself. But I think it's also fun for people to play with other people. The show is getting easier and easier to shoot and for us together. And I know, the thing is, what pitfalls there might be in any scene with any cast member or any crew. You're just much more aware, and you have this shorthand and this language that's just fantastic.
The third season finale episode, Party, that you earned your nomination for, is just a hoot. And yet, like so much of the show, Randall, poignant. Is it ever a challenge for you trying to emphasize the more serious, tender, kind of genuine human moments of a show that's so dedicated to making us laugh at the same time?
I mean, for me, and I think also for Quinta and the writers, that comes really easy because we're all kind of saps. I mean, it's those emotional moments, I think, are what are going to keep the viewer coming back for. It's not just the laughs, it's the emotional moments, and you want to see what's happening with them next week and the week after and the week after. So I think those emotional moments and the story is as, if not more important than the jokes.
Is it at all weird for you working or making a show that's no longer the hot newcomer, but merely, one that's kind of settled in as a quality piece of work for the long haul? When everyone's talking about you and it's like, wow, this Abbott is the greatest thing ever, in season one, and you're, the fair-haired boy and the new kid on the block. And now you're just, one of the other shows, albeit a very quality show. Is there a different vibe on the set?
I mean, I don't think so, because I think once we started shooting the pilot, everything worked and we fit together. And we all knew our place and we all knew how to feed off each other and to make the scenes as good as they could be. And I'm not really thinking about what people are liking. I'm more thinking about what we're doing and the story we're telling. I could go crazy trying to predict what people are going to respond to. I'm just trying to please myself. So, and that if I have good taste, then other people might like it as well. But I think it's really hard to try to predict what people think and what they're going to respond to. I think you just need to be true to yourself and the story. And the fact, I think now that Abbott has grown in, it's in a very, very comfortable place. I think now is when the show can get even better.
Besides, with your impressive resume, besides being good at the job, is there a secret to consistently getting hired to direct in TV as you have over a long period of time? I mean, is there a psychology to being, both the taskmaster and the best friend or anything like that?
I don't know. For me, directing, the most important thing I do is listen. And I try to be really attentive to what the writers are saying and attentive to what the cast is saying and characters are saying, and everybody. I think for me, it's opposite to the director should be the loudest voice or the biggest voice on set. I think when we need to say something, of course we will be, but I think thinking about it and understanding what everybody's saying is, for me, what's most important. And going in for a job interview, I think that's paramount. Is you need to understand what people are talking about, and there's no faking that. Either you do or you don't.
We're going to wrap things there. All 3 seasons of ABC's Abbott Elementary stream over Hulu. Randall Einhorn, best of luck at the forthcoming Emmys in September, and thanks for joining us at Gold Derby.
Thank you so much.
I'm Gold Derby News and Features editor Ray Richmond, and I'm welcoming the 2-time Emmy-winning Hacks director, Lucia Aniello, to our Gold Derby Meet the Emmy Nominees TV Directors panel. Lucia, you might have the greatest job in all of TV. Co-running a show where you get to work with Jean Smart and Hannah Einbinder every day, not to mention your husband, Paul Vance.
I know. I really am. I honestly, feel so lucky to get to make this show with Jen and Paul, my, co-creators and best friends, and my husband. And yeah, with Jean and Hannah and our amazing cats, I really am the luckiest. Chicken Town.
Good. So I mean, you have to that's pinch yourself time every day. As something of a triple threat who writes, produces, and directs on the same comedy series, I'm wondering which of those duties is the most consistently challenging for you?
I mean, they certainly are a challenge in different ways. I think, you know, in many ways, directing is, because it is like the most collaborative with the most amount of people. I will say that I do think that there is, you know, there is a pretty big challenge in that, you know, so often I'm, you know, spending so much time with so many different departments and actors and our regular actors as well as our guest actors and you know, whether as well as our, you know, AD department or whatever it is. It's just, it really is a really interesting balance of technical, people management, as well as creative. And so I do find that, you know, sometimes you have to be paying a little bit more attention to one thing to make the other thing better. So I might have to say, oh, you know what, let's prioritize, as a producer, let's prioritize this scene so that once I get into the scene as a director, I'm able to work with the actors, work with the scene, tweak the scene, you know, work with our operators and our cinematographers to really mold it into the thing we want to do. So they really all work together, those three roles. But I will say, I do think the directing sometimes I feel like is taking my brain and wringing it out. So so everyone can kind of be like, here's to make sure that everybody feels like they're on the same page, because when that happens, then that really is when everybody's able to do their job their best.
Wearing so many hats, I would imagine, though, that could make you nuts.
And a 2-year-old, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Talk about having it all and trying to have it all. Let's talk specifically about Bulletproof, that
yes.
final episode of season 3 that earned you Emmy nominations for both writing and directing. I wasn't surprised that episode generated you so much attention, because it really deftly blends comedy and, you know, character-driven humanity. Is that one of the primary challenges, even whether you're writing or directing, is fusing those two?
Yes, that is, I would say, undoubtedly the biggest challenge on our shows. It is a comedy. It is a comedy first. It's a comedy about comedy. So if you're not nailing the comedy in the show, it's not going to work. And that has to be first and foremost. And so in an episode like Bulletproof, which of course also has some pretty intense dramatic moments, if they're not balanced out in the same weight with big comedy moments, then it feels off. And because we had such bigger dramatic moments, especially in the last 10 minutes or so in the episode, that meant the rest of the episode had to have really fun, light moments like Paul and Meg's airplane scene, for example, some really laugh out loud scenes to help you feel like you're getting the right balance overall of the show. But you know, like that is also one of the gifts that the actors give me, is that they are so good at both comedy and drama. And that makes my job infinitely easier as a writer and director, because I'm able to trust that they can execute those things. And then therefore, on the day or in the edit, I'm able to kind of we are able to fine tune those performances to get that right balance. And that right balance is something that, you know, starts from originally just from which pitches end up on the cards to the actual scripts to on the day. Like, we're constantly doing that balance of the writing and comedy. Of course, more on the comedy side, just because it is a comedy, but that is something that is, you know, constantly being monitored throughout the process.
Loved the airplane scene, but yeah, oh my God, the one moment where Ava learns Deborah has totally betrayed her is just devastating. And then Ava strikes back like a python, and it's blackmail, and now we know it's really game on between these women.
Yeah.
That just, you know, it was perfectly done.
Did you see it coming?
What's that?
Did you see that coming? Ava's
no, oh, I totally did not. I so didn't see it coming at the very, you know, of course we're spoiling everything for people that haven't seen this yet. But
guys, go see it. Pause the video.
I did not see that coming. But good. I was struck, you know, by how it became clear in that finale that their fighting demonstrated this complicated and some might say sick love for each other. You know, we know that their adversarial mutual respect has now come to full flower, and it obviously opens a whole other door for you for season 4.
Yeah, we obviously are writing that right now, but that's exactly right. It is, you know, we really want to, and you were just talking about this a little bit with Randall about the idea of, you know, when you're not it's not your first season of the show, you're a couple seasons in. What does that feel like? And for us, similarly, like we want to make sure that every season feels distinct, different, like it builds on the last season. So it just doesn't feel like you're doing a retread. And I think that that's the way that you keep the audience excited because they don't know what's going to happen next. You shift power dynamics, which also gives you so much to play with in a different way that feels like you haven't seen it before. And so for us, season 3, and especially culminating in Bulletproof, really felt like it was about power and the way that people give power and the way people take power. And for them, Deborah and Ava, you know, their relationship is so built on their love of comedy, their language of comedy, and their love of comedy together, the way that they love writing together. And so when that complicated relationship kind of becomes less about the creativity and more about the power, and then it does flip the script. And so it does lead to what I hope is an even better 4th season than 3rd.
Is it different directing actors who are delivering words you've personally written? And if the answer is no, that's okay too.
Definitely. because I feel like there's a way that I'm so underneath the script that then if the actor wants to talk about motivation or how did you imagine this or what do you think about this moment, I'm able to talk about it with such confidence because I'm from the inside of it, you know, versus the times, and I have, you know, on occasion directed things that I haven't written, and I still, you know, usually in some way part of the process of creating that, but not necessarily the writer of it. And it can be a little bit more interpretation, which could be completely right based on what the original author was considering, or it could be slightly different interpretation, which also can lead to really beautiful things. But for me, it really is helpful to be able to say with complete certainty, this is how it was visualized. And that I think does help the actor feel more taken care of and feel like they have like such a distinct North Star, because you're like, this is how I was thinking it. And of course, I'm always so open to different thoughts and ideas of the actors. And Jean and I talk about this kind of stuff a lot. She's like, oh, I was thinking it this way. And so sometimes I'll say, well, you know what, if that's how you feel like it's funniest, then it will be funnier coming out of your mouth that way. Because, you know, for me to say this is exactly, you know, I don't really do like, here's how I wanted it to sound like this or whatever. I don't do that to the genius that is Jean Smart. But sometimes there are certain tonalities to dialogue that are just in our minds as we write. So and sometimes there aren't. Sometimes if she says, I feel like this is the way I want to deliver it, then it is the right choice, because she, especially when she's doing the comedy on the show, she needs to feel comfortable in her skin and how she feels something would be delivered, because that will feel the most real to the audience. And the more real that Deborah Vance feels, the better, you know, everything works. We're hanging a hat on that in a big way, and she really delivers.
But as the director, you can't be frustrated having the writer on the set.
No, it's nice that Paul and Jen and I get to be on set all day, every day, because, you know, so often we just huddle together and have our quick conversations and come back to the actors. And so we're very lucky.
We're going to wrap things there. All 3 seasons of Hacks stream on Max. Hacks on Max. Hey, that sounds like the title of a Dr. Seuss book. Anyway, but I digress. Lucia Aniello, best of luck at the forthcoming Emmys in September. Thanks for joining us at Gold Derby.
Thanks so much for having me. I loved it.
I'm Gold Derby News and Features editor Ray Richmond, and I'm welcoming the Emmy-winning director of the spy thriller Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Hiro Murai, to our Gold Derby Meet the Emmy Nominees TV Directors panel. Hiro, I know you've had a long-term relationship with Donald Glover, who co-created, produces, writes, and stars in Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Talk about how that teaming evolved. I know it started with you directing music videos for Donald's Childish Gambino alter ego.
Yeah, I probably started working with them like 12 years ago, which feels really crazy to say at this point. But yeah, I just, you know, he was doing a rollout for an album, and I just happened to meet him and his manager. And you know, I thought it was going to be a very temporary relationship, because music video directing tends to be that way. But we just immediately clicked. And when he was developing Atlanta, he was looking for a director, and he sort of insisted to effects that I be the director. And I just thought that wasn't going to go well because, it's like you go into a network and be like, hey, my buddy's going to direct my pilot, So thinking from a effects point of view, I thought they would never let that happen. But they kind of trusted our process and kind of our chemistry and our voice together. And since then, we've just been kind of, working on and off together for the past decade.
Obviously, directing Atlanta, whole different series of muscles than doing Childish Gambino. What was that experience like?
Well, Atlanta was my first foray into TV and even just long form narrative in general. So it was it was certainly a learning experience. There's just a lot that I didn't know back then. But what I did know is that we were aiming for something really specific tonally that we were developing on the short form side, and there was I knew enough to kind of trust the chemistry that me and Donald had, and kind of this surrealist, mundane sort of tone that we were both attracted to was really important for the show. So that kind of was the North Star, and everything else I just kind of learned on the job, fortunately.
I see that you're also an exec producer on a little show called The Bear, and you directed episodes of Barry. I mean, Hiro, is there a high profile show you haven't had a hand in lately? It's from a guy who hadn't done any TV, you suddenly hit the ground and you suddenly were everywhere.
I've been really lucky, I think I just happened to be around people who were like-minded and wanted to play with the TV medium. And I think there's something exciting, especially a couple of years ago, where people were really playing with the half-hour format, turning them into dramas, and playing with the form in a bunch of different ways. And yeah, I just happened to be around a bunch of people who thought the same way, and I was just lucky to be invited.
Although I think you create your own luck, of course. Let's talk about Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Looks like it's certainly a hell of a lot of fun to watch, and I will have to believe a kid to direct too. And you directed the first 2 episodes of season 1. Just when John and Jane, played by Donald Glover and Maya Erskine, are getting to know each other, you must have a shorthand with Donald at this point after directing him so much over the years, and that had to help.
Yeah, but it was strange because a lot of the crew we carried over from Atlanta too. My DP Christian Sprenger was also on Atlanta, and we just kept running into this thing where we kept calling Donald by his character name on Atlanta for the first couple weeks. It just everything was so like too familiar. We kept reminding ourselves that he wasn't Ern, he was John.
Yikes! So, but once you got that straight and you figured out what his character that he was John. It seemed to work out pretty well, and you got to work not only with him but with Maya and Paul Dano also, which also had to be. They're both so terrific on the show.
Yeah, I mean, the Maya was such a pleasure. I mean, I've known her a little bit before, and I was such a huge fan of her work in Pen 15. But what she's doing here is so different than what she did in Pen 15. I knew she was a terrific actress, but what she brought to the show, I was like really blown away just from day one. She just clicked in immediately, and and what she does on Pen 15 is so big and like just like so cathartic and cool. But what she does here is like she's still tapped into that sort of like chaotic energy, but she can also play it really small and nuanced as well. So yeah, I mean, it was just such a pleasure, honestly. And then we really didn't know how Donald and Maya's chemistry was going to kind of play. It was kind of a random. It was a guess, that they were going to work on screen, but luckily they just immediately clicked and they just started playing around with each other, and that became kind of the core of the whole show. It's so much about that relationship and kind of what their intimacy looks like, which is its own very specific rhythm.
That's really true, though. No matter how well your casting people do or your producers do, you never really know how the chemistry is going to work until you're rolling. It's always a roll of the dice. You were nominated for the first episode of Mr. and Mrs. Smith First Date. Is it tougher directing a series pilot where, we're just getting to know everyone and there's so many elements to establish?
I think so. Sometimes I get jealous, because I'll watch a later episode of a series that I directed the pilot for and see that they really get to kind of, everything's all fleshed out, the character dynamics are all there, the actors know each other, and then they really get to kind of deliver on the promise of the pilot. So I think it is more complicated in the beginning because you're really kind of finding your footing and finding your sea legs. But also there's a lot of joy in the exploration and the finding. I think especially for a show like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, it could have been so many different things tonally. Especially given that it came from IP of a movie initially, and so yeah, every day, we were kind of chipping away at the tone, I was lucky enough to be around a bunch of people I've worked with before, and so there was enough of a shorthand that it felt comfortable. But it is a very very like intricate and kind of tedious process.
Yeah, speaking of that tone, and the fact that there was a 2005 movie of the same name, the one that gave the world Brangelina that it's based on.
Mm-hmm.
Were there discussions with Donald and Francesca Sloan, the co-showrunner, about making sure the series had a different tone than that, or did you want it to be a similar? I mean, it's not like if there are 19 years ago that everyone is remembering every nuance of that film. So
Sure.
you could go for a completely similar tone.
Yeah, I mean, I think by nature of Donald and Maya being the leads of this show, even if we did a shot-for-shot remake of that movie, it just wouldn't be the same tone. They're just very different actors. They have a very different point of view. And I think what was attractive about the project for me was when I started talking about Fran, or started talking with Fran about the project was, this is sort of about a modern couple playing dress up as like a effortless spy couple. It's people who are kind of out of their wits and very effortful, pretending to be effortless. And I think there's something about I don't know, being a couple in modern times that feel like you're pretending to be adults a little bit. And so, me, Fran, Donald, and Maya are all about the same age, and it just felt like there was a common experience there that we could translate into the spy genre in a very sort of strange roundabout way. So we just started from there.
And you're always thinking, I'm sure, about making sure you keep enough of a comedic tone in there that you don't want this ever to be just a straight ahead spy show.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the idea of a spy show is just inherently kind of absurd, like
it's kind of true.
Yeah, it's strange. And so I think there's a lot of comedy we mined out of that. And, we kept thinking about what the company that hired them was doing, like what's their motivation. And then there's just something inherently sort of like algorithmic and strange and absurd about what they were being asked to do. So I think just they're naturally reacting to what they're assigned to do was the source of a lot of the comedy.
Well, we're going to wrap things there. Season 1 of Mr. and Mrs. Smith streams on Prime Video. Hiro Murai, best of luck at the forthcoming Emmys in September, and thanks for joining us at Gold Derby.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
I'm Gold Derby News and Features Editor Ray Richmond, and I'm welcoming Nick Murray, the two-time Emmy-winning director on RuPaul's Drag Race, to our Gold Derby Meet the Emmy Nominees TV Directors panel. So Nick, RuPaul's Drag Race started out as this niche show on Logo TV in 2009. Now 16 seasons later, oh my God, it's not only taken drag mainstream, it's a genuine global phenomenon. 29 Emmys, including the top reality show Emmy 5 times. You've directed 117 episodes. Do you ever find yourself wondering?
No. Oh my God, 117.
This is what I'm told on IMDb.
Wow. I think it's more than that.
Is it more than that?
I think so. Yeah. Well, if you include All Stars and Celebrity and all the other iterations, and
right, all the other iterations. Sure.
Yeah.
You ever find yourself wondering how could this all possibly have happened?
I do. It's so bizarre, and so amazing in all wrapped into one thing. um, I wanted to direct from the age of 12 because my parents were in the business in the UK at the BBC, and I remember sitting in the back of the control room when I was 12 and pointing to the guy in the middle who was orchestrating whatever he was shooting. I think it was a news show at the time, and I was like, "That's the guy I want to be. I want to be a TV director." So single-mindedly, from that point onwards, I did whatever I could to get into.
And it seems to have worked out pretty
television directing, and it seems to be working out pretty well, like you say. Yeah, yeah, it's phenomenal that this little show. I joined the little show that could, and then did some more,
and then
back
stop.
in season 3, and then it's like a cultural juggernaut that keeps on rolling down the hill, taking everybody with them on this joyful, amazing, phenomenal, colorful, wonderful ride that is RuPaul's Drag Race. Yeah, I joined season 3, I think, many years ago now, and it's just been an incredible ride to see how the show has changed, how I've changed, how society as a whole, sort of culturally, has changed. You know, all because of our little show that was originally shot in some basement, I think, at World of Wonder.
I guess
and
I don't
now
know
we're
if
on
they
a
could have
huge
seen.
lot with 4 stages.
I don't know if they could have seen this.
I don't know. I think the intention was always to, you know, to move drag and take drag into mainstream and have it, you know, to a wider audience. And I think we've certainly done that. You know, thanks to Ru, the amazing cast and crew, World of Wonder, MTV VH1. You know, we've taken it from a very niche show on Logo TV back in the day to now it's watched all over the world on multiple platforms. And, you know, Ru's become an international icon for many different movements, not just the gay movement. It's humbling. I'm humbled and proud to be to play a small part in what has been a cultural phenomenon over the past 15 years.
And at the same time, it stays, you know, true to drag, even though it's families and kids are watching this and embracing it. It keeps that edge.
Absolutely. Well, that's, you know, that's drag at its heart. It's always, you know, pushing back a little bit. It has an edge, you know, not mainstream, but willing to go down that road every now and then to drag some other people on the journey with them. You know, that's one of the beauties of the show.
Let's talk for a second, Nick, about your Emmy-nominated episode, this season's grand finale, where the top queen faced off performances and lip syncs. What do you think it was about that appealed to the Emmy nomination gods? If you could step outside that.
I would.
Yes.
I wouldn't like to I don't really know what the thing is about the finale this year is that we decided to take it away from the traditional theatre finale that we've done, you know, for many seasons now, and take it into Ru's house and do a little spruce up, a little redesign. So we brought in some screens and extra, you know, production design on the main stage of the show. We revamped the judges panel and, you know, laid down enough seating for, you know, a good size audience to, you know, experience the finale in an intimate yet grand way. I mean, that's what we were kind of going for is you know, a more intimate show than 900, 1,000 people in a big theater, but also, you know, we wanted to have that feel, but also make it more intimate for the both the viewer and the people experiencing it live. And I think we achieved that.
It obviously resonated. But just, you know,
I think so, yeah.
The whole season, it's always fun to see the guest judges and the mentors the show continues to attract. You had Charlize Theron,
oh yeah, one of my
faves. Oh my God, people clamor to get on this show now.
They do, and there's a lot of diehard celebrity fans that want to go on the show, and it's a big commitment for them. They have to spend a good 7-8 hours on set. It's they normally come on a day two, and that day is chock a block full of shooting basically half the show. So it's a testament to the show that celebrities and other people willing to extend their time to 7 or 8 hours, which is quite unusual. You've got to be, one, really invested in the show, two, love the Queens and Rue, and three, be up to having a good time and getting into the spirit of the show. And I think that comes across with every guest that we've had on.
At the same time, it really marks them as cool to be part of the show. I mean, it actually helps them with their own branding.
I think there is a cool factor definitely to it now. It's moved from kind of quirky niche. Oh, that cool little show. Now it's just full blown. Oh, you're on RuPaul's Drag Race. Oh my God, that's amazing. Everybody tweets about it. Everybody posts on Insta. It's really wonderful to see. And everyone who comes and sits on the judges panel is so invested. They may only be there for a day, but they are solidly invested in the show, and it's heartwarming, and they don't want to leave. That's a funny thing. When it's over, when Ruth says, let the music play, they're like, really? That's it? We got to go? Anyway, you saw a few years ago, we had Jeff Goldblum on, and he was literally the last person to leave the set, the main stage, and we rolled on it, and it was so wonderful to see him. He had the best time, I think, during. I have to do any guess on any show. That was the best time that he had on our show. It was so nice to see.
Well, part of that is because it's hard to get Jeff Goldblum to leave anywhere. But that's another. No, that's not true at all.
Yeah.
Just a joke. Before we wrap here, Nick, how has being part of the show personally changed your own life?
Ooh, it's like I said, it's exposed me to an art form and a side of society that I wasn't previously aware of, to be honest. And it makes me acknowledge how lucky and grateful I am. I wouldn't say it's changed me professionally. The guys at World of Wonder, who hire me every year, pushed me over the years and given me the latitude to go bigger or go broke, if you want, with the show and get it to where it looks like a prime time, more than a prime time, network show. And I've been given the tools and the resources and the encouragement to do that. And I'm flattered that I've been recognized, 7 times nominated, but also twice. I've won twice, which I still pinch myself when I go to sleep at night. I can't believe it. It's
And
this guy from a small
congratulations
town in England is thank you. It's got 2 Emmys in his office at home. It's crazy. It's crazy. I never even dreamt of it. I just wanted to be a TV director, directing local news, and now look at me.
Look at you now. Well, we're gonna wrap things there. RuPaul's Drag Race airs these days on MTV, streams on Paramount Plus. Nick Murai,
thank you very much.
Best of luck at the forthcoming Emmys in September. Thanks for joining us at Gold Derby.
Going for my hat trick. Thanks very much.
There you go.
Appreciate your time. Cheers.
Sure thing. Welcome to the special Gold Derby Meet the Emmy Nominees TV Directors Roundtable. I'm News and Features Editor Ray Richmond, and I'm joined today by Weronika Tofilska, director of the first 4 episodes of Baby Reindeer, Abbott Elementary director Randall Einhorn, Hacks director Lucia Aniello, Mr. and Mrs. Smith director Hiro Murai, and RuPaul's Drag Race director Nick Murai. Thank you for joining us. It's exciting to have you all here today, all you nominees. Get started. I wanted to ask what people who aren't in the business or regularly on a set tend to get wrong about your job as a director. Do they think you wear a beret and move around on a crane barking orders into a bullhorn? Veronika, let's start with you.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think like I remember like very, very early on kind of talking to my parents about wanting to be a director, and I think there was definitely like a lot of conversations about how loud can I be and sort of that way. So I think there's definitely a lot of misconceptions about like this kind of general type of person, like, you know, like the sort of fearless leader kind of thing. And I think that's hopefully changing, you know. Yeah, that's I think that's my answer.
How about you, Randall?
I mean, I always get mistaken for the key grip. So I don't know what it is. I don't have tattoos. I don't wear.
I knew I'd seen you somewhere.
It's interesting. Like I was saying before, for me, my biggest job is actually listening. It's not talking. It's taking in what everybody's, the feel of something, the vibe of something, and to me, that's the most important thing that I do. And it's you wouldn't think so, but it really is for me at least. Yeah.
Lucia, what do people who aren't around television tend to think the job of a director is?
Well, I think that the assumption sometimes is just that, you know, maybe you just direct the actors or something, or that's kind of the main thing that you do, which of course is a huge part of the job. But similarly, like when my parents are around, I think that the thing that they seem to give the most feedback about is not realizing just how much prep goes into it, how much work goes into after you're shooting and the post process and how long it takes. I think if we're doing our jobs right, it looks like it's easy. And sometimes I think, you know, the love that goes into it and the care is something that, you know, I don't think anybody has asked you for credit for it, but it is, you know, something that just takes a lot of time and yeah.
Hiro, what misconceptions do people have about what you do as a director?
I think people assume it's pretty glamorous. I guess, you know, and I guess there is a little bit of that, but they're usually not thinking about, you know, eating pizza for a second meal after a 14-hour day, or, you know, there's a lot of kind of nitty gritty stuff that I love, but you know, it's not part of what you think of when you think director.
The location just got the van, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I would say 14 hours into your day eating pizza. That is living, though.
I was going to say, that doesn't sound so bad.
That sounds really good.
Where do I sign up for that job?
No, I was exactly. Yeah, no, I echo that. So there is this perception that it's super glamorous and some sort of red carpet is permanently in front of you as you walk around set, which is just laughable. And then pizza at the end of the day. No, I mean, with regard to what I do, people are always amazed that you know, that I have sometimes 12, 13 cameras running at the same time. And they're often like, how on earth do you keep track of that? And it's a lot of prep, has been said. And, you know, you've really got to care about this job, because if you don't, it really comes through, you know, not only on film, but also when you're doing it as well. You know, people notice, and you're effectively in charge of a great big crew. I mean, I don't know how big you guys' crews are, you know, but mine, you know, that on Drag Race now, it's, you know, it's well over 100 people through various department heads. So there is a lot of sort of, I call it chief of staff work that I do that people don't really understand. Is like, you know, making sure everyone's on the same page. There's no infighting. There's no, you know, everyone knows what they're doing. You know, the grand plan. Not only just positioning cameras and then directing cameras. You know, it's a little bit more involved with that, as we all know. And pizza after 15 hours, yes.
If you're really lucky.
I know, next, I know people too often diminish the role of directors in TV at the same time. The prevailing belief seems to be that TV is a writer's medium and film the director's medium. Have you ever found yourself needing to fight for respect on the set as a director? And if so, how did that play out? I know some of you both write and direct, but let's restrict it just to your director's hat. Let's go in maybe reverse order and start with you, Nick. Do they accord you the proper respect on the Drag Race set?
Yes, but I've been doing it now nearly 15 years. So.
And they did. Was that always the case? Did you get the same respect at the beginning?
I don't do. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah, completely. Yeah. But it's when you join a show. Albeit I joined on season 3. They keep quiet, see how the ship runs, and then slowly assert yourself. There is a process on a sort of a long running show. But no, I've never felt that I've been disrespected in any way. Some of my ideas are not gratefully accepted, but that's part and parcel of being part of a team, a collaboration.
Hiro, what say you on this?
I think generally I've been pretty lucky to work on shows where I was really kind of in the bunker with the writers, and we're all trying to accomplish something similar. I think to all my sort of writer collaborators, the execution and kind of filming is part of the same process. There's different tools to get the same results. So it's never felt like two separate things, and where I had to kind of fight to get some elbow room to do what I want. It's all sort of it's all sort of part of the same process, I think. And
Lucia, I know you wear a lot of hats on the hack set, so I'm not sure it applies on that show. But as a director on other shows or other projects, has that ever been an issue in just getting the proper respect as a professional?
I would say not at this point, but I certainly felt that maybe when I was very, very, very first starting out, maybe a little bit more in, like, for example, commercials. I found the crew, sometimes I would have some trouble with some crew people not wanting to take direction from me at times. I had one crew person said, well, why don't we wait till see what the director says? And I was like, okay.
Was that because of the fact you were a director, or the fact you were female?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That happened to me as well, actually. I have to say exactly the same thing. Yeah.
I was going to say, Weronika, has that ever, being accorded the proper respect on the set as a director, ever been an issue for you?
I think I totally agree as well. Like, it's a very gradual thing. So that situation happened to me when I was doing like a music video very early on, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, and I started to talk to hair and makeup and talk about it, and they're like, yes, but I'm just gonna wait for the director, and I was like, that's me.
Yeah.
That'll be me.
I think often getting confused for hair and makeup myself as well, by the way. I find it quite fun. I find it quite funny that you can surprise people that way, I guess, because you don't have that kind of general kind of old school director kind of look. So yeah.
Maybe we should go back to wearing berets, though. Then people would know.
Yes.
Bring that
right.
beret, the beret
with a big bullhorn.
Yeah.
When my husband first started directing, because he's primarily known as a writer and actor, on his first day of directing, he actually did wear a beret because he thought it would be a fun bit. and a black turtleneck.
Perfect.
Oh my God.
How about you, Randall?
Stereotypical on that.
I haven't been doing like guest directing for a while, so most of the things I'm working on are things that I've either developed or I've been an EP on. But I've always found that just getting in and understanding what it's about will alleviate those conversations on set, because I think going to set, you want to have your ducks in a row and really be on the same page with a writer. And if you're not, that's where you can have problems. And just actors seeing that those conversations on set kind of, wow, am I not in good hands? I think that can be very detrimental to the project. So I just try to get very prepared, because I'm not very smart, and I just want to understand what I'm doing well and truly before I get there. So I think in prep, I try to avoid that.
Last question for everyone. If you had the opportunity to give a piece of advice to your younger self, just starting out in business as a director or another professional, but a director in particular, even if that was only a few years ago, what would that advice be? Lucia, kick us off.
I would probably give this advice to myself now because I don't ever learn it. But, I really feel oftentimes just like a lot of stress or anxiety or pressure of just every day of, getting the work done that we need. And I do a lot of prep. And sometimes I think that leads to me not necessarily having as much fun or enjoying the process as much as I probably should, just because I really just care about it so much that sometimes I think I let that cloud maybe just I wish I could be a little more easygoing, a little chilla. I would tell myself to be chilla.
What about you, Randall? What would you tell yourself?
I think something I know now that I necessarily didn't know when I first started directing was it's not about you. It's not even for you. It's actually you're serving a bigger thing. And like, for instance, right now I'm doing Abbott Elementary, which is it's Quinta's voice. It's not about me. And it's taken me a minute to learn that. But I've never seen it so clearly as with Abbott. It's like, oh, I'm not telling my story. I don't even know how to tell this story. So I really need to listen and get behind it so that I can tell other people's story. And I think that's the key to directing is you're telling other people's story. And you need to understand where it's coming from. Yeah.
What about you, Veronica?
Yeah, I think maybe like a couple things, but one is if it was kind of a few years ago in my career, I was in a slightly different place. So I would be like, hang on in there, basically. It's gonna get better. But also to Lucia's point, like, about kind of just be a bit chiller. And there was this kind of thing that we like on set actually with Richard started to kind of say like, let go or be dragged, which was like this kind of Zen sort of saying. And I think I kind of started using that a little bit, kind of ironically, but not ironically really. So I think that's what I would tell myself.
How about you, Hiro?
This might sound overly practical, but I think the biggest thing I've learned in the last couple of years is just to prioritize sleep. Mm-hmm. You realize some of these shows go on for months and months, and you're always working till you fall asleep, and you always think pushing yourself for an hour or two will buy you something, but in the long haul, it's just better to get sleep because it's a marathon, not a sprint.
That's good. That's good advice for everybody, no matter what profession they're in.
Yeah, I think so.
That's right.
And Nick, how about you? What would you tell your younger self?
Well, I finally learned this. It's taken me a long time, but I'd tell my younger self that not everybody's going to want to work with you. Not everyone's going to want to like or love the way you work or do, your process. And that's okay. And also, don't be too bummed if you don't get certain jobs. You can't direct everything, which is what I wanted to do when I first started out. And it took me a while just to go, oh yeah, someone else can do that. It's fine. I'm doing this. Can't do everything. I think it stems from being impatient at times. I was a little late to the directing game as well, in my view. But yeah, those are the two little nuggets that I'm still working on. But I would definitely tell my younger self.
Well, you've made up for lost time, Nick.
Thank you.
That's all the time. All the time we have. I want to thank nominees Weronika Tofilska, Randall Einhorn, Lucia Aniello, Hiro Murai, and Nick Murray. Best of luck to all of you at the Emmys in September, and thanks so much for joining us here today at Gold Derby.
Thank you.
Thank
you so much.